Us, and I hope you've had a great couple weeks. So today we're going to talk about the flavors and colors of reality. And so one of the problems we run into when we are addicted, as we know, since you're all here listening to me, is that life without addictive behaviors, substances, or whatever it is we're doing, our life can feel pretty dull, can feel pretty drab, pretty gray. And some of that's because we have an unrealistic view of what life should be, and some of it's because we've had a lot of hurt and pain in our lives. So I want to make sure I say this. You hear me talk about rich, full, meaningful life a lot, and that's so much the time we talk about that's our goal, to have a rich, full, meaningful life connected with people, with God, with ourselves, and living with purpose, moving past addiction, understanding God's love, God's grace, all those things. So I think I need to make sure I say this to us. Rich, full, meaningful life doesn't mean that we're doing cartwheels every day and that we got parades thrown every day and just everything's wonderful and magical and we just can be happy. That's not what we're talking about. Rich, full, meaningful life, though, is a life of passion, of purpose, of love, connection. And those don't always mean that everything is fireworks every day. And I think the problem is when we get into addiction, we have some very unrealistic views of what life looks like. So Anna Lemke wrote the book Dopamine Nation, and I do recommend it to you to read. She makes her point that we are becoming a very addicted society. Just to give you a sense, I think this is just such a powerful and sad statistic, but for people over 50 that do not have degrees, the top 3 causes of death now are drug overdoses, alcohol-related liver failure, and suicide. I think that would be fair to say that rich, full, meaningful life may not feel like it's realistic for us, for many of us in our world now, and we could go into all those stuff that's going on with that. But let's not forget that we have to be realistic about life. Life is tough. Life is full of loss. Life is full of problems. But it also can be filled with passion. It can be filled with love. And it can be filled with connection. And when we're addicted, we tend to kind of overblow that. But let's not forget what Jesus said in the Beatitudes in Matthew. He says, "You're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there's more of God and His rule." So when we're in our misery, when our low states, just remember, sometimes maybe that's exactly where we need to be to get us back. You're blessed when you feel you've lost what is most dear to you. Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you. You're blessed when you're content with just who you are, no more, no less. That's the moment you find yourselves proud owners of everything that can't be bought. So see, the problem is, as we know, when we're addicted, we loathe ourselves. We can't stand ourselves. We find ourselves repulsive. Now, we may live with bravado and act like we're great and everything else, but the fact is, we are all the time compensating for how we feel about ourselves. And so when Jesus says you're blessed when you're content with who you are, that's important. We need to hear that. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be 6'2". You don't have to be skinny. You don't have to be smart. You don't be that. You are exactly who God made. And for us to continue to criticize and reject ourselves makes such a lonely life, because we go out and we harm ourselves and we sabotage ourselves and we destroy relationships. And so the good news is that there's this thing called brain plasticity, and our brains can rewire. Our brains can recover. Our brains can really make comebacks on stuff. And so for us that worry about, well, all the stuff we've done, we've destroyed our brains, it's not true. Now, there's some recovery in this. And there's some time in this, and that's what we talk about with Anadonia, a term it doesn't mean you're depressed. It just means that you're just existing. And it's not great, it's not terrible, but it's a hard place to be. So just remember, our brains do have the capacity to heal and recover, and it's called brain plasticity. And also, let's not forget, we have a Lord and Savior who has an amazing capacity to love. And Jesus Christ loves us. But for us, it's oftentimes it's hard for us. We just, oftentimes we just see reality is not good enough. Normal rewards and pleasures, they're just, I don't know, they're empty, they're not exciting. And for us as addictive thinkers, a lot of times we feel like we're being deprived of the real thing. Philip Reif, a mid-20th century psychologist and philosopher, foresaw this trend in the book, The Triumph of the Therapeutic, Uses of Faith after Freud. Man, that's a long one there. Anyway, his quote was, "Religious man was born to be saved. Psychological man is born to be pleased." I hope for us that are here, obviously we're looking for that deeper spiritual meaning. Pursuing happiness by itself will not work. It just doesn't work. You have to have purpose. You have to be part of something bigger than yourself. You have to find meaning in your life. You have to find ways to connect with others. You have to do all these things, because the problem is when your quest is happiness, you're always going to see other people as happier than you. That's why I always tell people, particularly people fighting through Anadonia and people who are depressed, is don't get on social media. All you're going to do is see how much happier everybody else is than you. I always remember that one time a guy in my office who had gone through a terrible divorce and very sad, he goes, so what does he do? He goes to a wedding. Can't think much worse. And so he told me afterward, he said, he came back so depressed, he said, everybody at the wedding was with someone and they all were happy. And I said, that's probably not true. So drab, gray, and blah, blah, blah. My world was drab and gray. My family, my job, my home, my life, my car, all were gray. I cannot stand everything being gray. I need color. And alcohol provided color to life. That's what we think. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be people. We're moping around. We're feeling lonely. And we're feeling depressed. And we know we're going to be rejected because of how awful we are. And we don't value ourselves. So we find other people who don't value us. And then we're shocked and stunned when we feel empty and abused and mistreated, or we get on social media for 6 hours a day and we can't figure out why we feel empty at the end of the day. So the problem is when we're addicted and then we stop, we go, I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to pray. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to go to support meetings. I'm going to quit doing what I've been doing. I am going to get clean. And you think, well, this is going to be great. Everything's going to be awesome. And guess what? It goes from dazzling to gray. So we got to remember that addictive behaviors is our way of avoiding pain, avoiding ourselves, trying to make life have something for us. And so the problem is we live our lives for a long time addictively, and that creates dopamine. It creates, our brains kind of rallies around that. So then we say, well, we're going to stop all this stuff. And now what we're feeling we think is normal. So think about that. You've been promised. People have told you you need to stop. People have told you it's time to recover. People have told you you've got to quit being in your 23rd or 33rd broken relationship. You got to get yourself back. And when you get yourself back, you got to get healthier. You got to start seeing your value in you. You need to create reasons to be here. You need to find something bigger than you. You need to go to the recovery groups. You need to do all these things. And you think, well, okay, they've promised me a better life, but that's not what I'm seeing. All I see is boring, tasteless. It's like taking some of your favorite foods and taking all the spices out of it, no salt, no pepper, no nothing. And that's how we see life, and that's how it feels. And so we're at a loss because we don't understand this. And people around us are lost. They're going, you're not using it anymore. You're doing better. You're starting to come back. I can see the old you, blah, blah, blah. And the problem is we feel very dissatisfied. We feel confused by it. We just, reality is so distorted when we're in our addictive mode. Think about, the problem is we have so much self-loathing for ourselves. We despise ourselves. So much of it's because for many of us, we experienced trauma. We experienced abandonment. We were told we weren't worthy as we were. We were told that we were flawed. We were all these things, and we thought nobody liked us. We felt like we were outside. I mean, almost universally, who people in recovery will say, when I was a kid, I never felt like I was part of the groups. I never felt like I was part of everyone else. And then they found stuff. And maybe when you got drunk, you thought people liked you better. When you smoked weed, you were funnier. Or when you became overly involved in this group, or whatever it was you did, it gave you a little bit of satisfaction. But the fact is, on the whole, you were chronically dissatisfied all the time. We just feel like we're not experiencing life as we should be. We feel underappreciated. We hid things. The things we do and have done in our addiction, we knew probably was not okay. So we did a lot of hiding. We didn't find much gratification in life, or maybe I should say we don't find much gratification in life. And so substances, compulsive behaviors, or relationships, kind of brought some color back to our lives. And so it's not hard to understand why we chose to become addicted, because in the short run, it gives us color. It gives us excitement, all those things. I've known people who have lived very recklessly in their lives, almost like a death wish, but that's what they had to do to feel good about life and feel like there was something going on. So Dr. Tversky writes, the addictive person has often shut off an entire feeling system to avoid pain. As the addict is helped to realize this, he or she begins to understand that much of the darkness and gray was due to a sensory blockage. As the person becomes more comfortable with feelings and dismantles this massive defense system, he or she begins to appreciate some of the color and excitement that does exist in the world. We have developed such massive defense systems. We talked about this on Friday about asking people, what were your defense systems? That wall we build up. We talk about the porcupine index, where you have your quills out and you're going to let people get so close to you because you assume you're going to be harmed and hurt. Well, the good news is about the confining wall is it keeps you safe. The bad news, you're lonely. And so we have to just understand with the addiction and all this and the depression, something's gone awry in our brains, and we have to see it as that. And there's no real starting point because we've felt this way most of our lives. A lot of us didn't get a fair shake in life. A lot of us have faced dysfunctional family stories that are mind-boggling. Some of us just discovered that when we use substances, people liked us better. It's hard not to keep doing it, or took away our depression for a little bit, or our loneliness, whatever it is. The problem was that we were chronically dissatisfied with life. And the thing is, it's because we have unrealistic expectations. And that's why I talked about when we talk about rich, full, meaningful life. Rich, full, meaningful life means that you get up and you have a reason to get up. It may not be a good day that day, but you're going to have good days in the future. You know that you have people in your life who love and care about you, and they hold you in high regard. You have reasons to do things right. You are there for others. You have connections, stuff you never dreamt of. And it's all you, not the stoned you, not the high you, not the hiding you, not the over-functioning you, but you. And support groups can help us with this. That's why you can't do this by yourself. I say this all the time, and I know it gets repetitive. I have never met anybody who has recovered by themselves. I've never met them. I've known some people who've quit, but they are miserable afterwards because they haven't worked on them. So the support groups can start giving us back just a little bit of color in our lives. So maybe the reality of our lives it's a little bit dazzling and it's a little bit gray. There's going to be good days. There's going to be such good days. But that's life. And it isn't about because how awful we are or because God doesn't love us or God's punishing us. God loves us. He doesn't keep score. It's us that keeps score. And so the good news again is that support groups such as NorthStar, AA, Al-Anon, all these groups, what they can do is they can create realistic expectations for us. That's how we get better. Because if you think about it, research has always shown people who are the most satisfied in life are the ones that set moderately difficult goals. Those that are dissatisfied set unrealistically high goals or very low goals. And they set very unrealistic high goals because they think they have to do that to be accepted, and they also know it's never going to work. So we talk about the ACE all the time here, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. And again, I always tell this statistic, and just so you understand how important it is that if you score 6 or more on the ACE, that means you had a lot of problems in your childhood. On average, without intervention, you're going to die 20 years younger than someone who scores 0 on the ACE. Now, I know we all argue about, is there really such thing as a 0 on the ACE? But there were some people out there that had fairly healthy childhoods. So again, we got to keep reminding ourselves, what is addiction? Habitual behavior to avoid pain. Now, once we get to a certain point, we lose the option of voluntarily not doing it anymore, and then we're truly addicted. And that's what's so hard. So we've shut off our entire system to avoid unpleasant feelings, and we have to get support to get us back out of there. The problem is we have to hit rock bottom. We have to, our law of human gravity has to flip to where it's more painful to use and to behave addictively than not to. It's more painful for me to stay away from everybody with my confining wall that's keeping me safe than it is to go out and connect and get hurt. So the goal is to become more comfortable with feelings and dismantle those crazy defense systems we do. One of the things we always joke about in NorthStar is the crazy things we do when we're addicted. And in the moment, it made sense to us. We actually believed it was a good thing, right? And the crazy stuff we say, like, I can quit any time. I don't have to do this. I wasn't on it 2 days ago, so obviously I'm not addicted. Well, I was only on social media for 30 minutes yesterday and the day before and the day before that. But I was on there because I had to be. Or I'm going to get on there and I'm going to stalk someone who's just hurt me, and I'm going to make myself feel even more miserable. Well, or I'm feeling kind of good about myself, so let me go find people who will help me not feel good about myself. We do all these things because it's part of our addictive thinking, it's a part of our addictive living, and it doesn't work. I state the obvious here. We can stop doing these crazy things. Remember, we talked about, again, substances, compulsive behaviors, and then relationships. The broken and dysfunctional relationships are addicted to people, however you want to say it. So it's tough. We quit doing these things. We got to replace it with something else. And that's kind of hard to do when all you've known is to be dysfunctional. All you've known is to be addictive. All you've known is to be angry at yourself and everybody around you, living with resentment and bitterness. So you stop doing this stuff, and then what do we have? We have depression. We have Anadonia. And so it's important to try to understand the difference between these two, because how we treat it is different. If we are truly depressed, depression, we can treat that with antidepressants and therapy. But if it's Anadonia, we're much better off to treat it with support groups and counseling and not the drugs. Now, some of us are going to have both. We're going to be depressed and we're going to have Anadonia. But boy, it's hard. And trust me, as health providers, they have a hard time understanding. It's so hard to see the difference. But here's the thing. Research shows that if you will face your pain without medication, without tranquilizers, you'll get well faster. Now, if you're depressed and you have Anadonia, antidepressants, mood stabilizers can help. But they're all designed to be short-term. They're not designed to be forever. And so it's important for you to try to figure that out. Am I experiencing Anadonia where I just feel like I feel blah, I feel nothing, I don't really feel good, I don't feel bad, but I feel bad because I don't feel good, and I need to figure out ways to move past that. Now, the problem with Anadonia, and people don't understand this, Anadonia creates a lot of relapse because it lasts for a long time. I've known of people who've had Anadonia for as much as a year. It's tough. But if you understand it, you can put a clinical reason to it, and you quit judging yourself. Because what we always get in trouble with is We say to ourselves, I'm doing the right things. I've done a lot of bad things in the past. I don't deserve to do well. I don't deserve to be healthy. I don't even know what it means. I just, all I know is dysfunction and despair and addiction. And so when I stop doing all that stuff, I may just attack myself and blame me for all this, when the fact is it's a physiological reaction to you stopping. It's like you sitting on a sofa for 15 years and then you get up and I tell you go run a marathon. It's probably going to hurt and it's not going to go well. You got to be patient. But the only way you can do that is you got to do it with other people. Deep communion and deep compassion is formed much more through shared pain than shared pleasure. Anna Lemke in her book talks about how there's research out there that shows that people respond and connect so much faster when we share the problems in our lives, the hurt in our lives, than not to share it. So only people who have suffered in some way can support another. And that's what we're full of in our NorthStar. We're full of people who have been hurt. But you know what? We're starting to get full of people who have rich, full, meaningful lives too. We're seeing stuff. Some of us are starting to live life we never dreamt of. And I don't get into this too much, but the other problem is with Anadonia, it creates this, we as addicts, we don't expect anything good to happen. We have sabotaged good so many times in our lives. And so Anadonia is kind of a form of morbid thinking. We kind of expect the bad to happen. And all we're saying to you is give it a chance. Put some faith out there that you can experience a rich, full, meaningful life. Even if it's just a little bit. Just catch a glimpse of it. We don't have to be miserable. We don't have to punish ourselves. We don't have to be so hard on ourselves. We do, but we don't have to. And that's what groups can tell us, can remind us, you know what? You're doing some things right. And we're so suspicious when things go well. It's like we just always looking behind us. Where's that shoe at that's going to fall on top of us? It doesn't have to be that way. Or if it does happen, it's not because of you being a bad person. It happens. These things happen. And I can tell you, and you know this, as you get less addictive, you quit doing crazy things that cause problems. I mean, let's be honest. Be patient. You didn't get addicted in one day. You're not going to become unaddicted in one day. Your brain needs time. It's called brain plasticity. You got to do things. So what are some things you can do? Write down gratitudes every day. Live with intentional gratitude. That will help you with Anadonia, because Anadonia is going to tell you, I don't feel anything. It was just another day. Well, guess what? There's some things to be grateful for. You're able to get up today. You're able to eat today. You had a roof over your head. Whatever it is, there's things to be grateful for. And the more you write your gratitudes, the more likely it is you're going to get past Anadonia. Maybe we could chop down Anadonia time frame. Maybe instead of being in Anadonia for 3 months, you'll be in it for 2 months if you do write down your gratitudes. So the next thing we talk about is you need to get exercise. Other thing, pray, meditate, spend alone time. Just listen. God is out there. Write down something good that happened to you. And then here's something you do need to do. Perform a random act of kindness to someone else. It will get you out of Anadonia faster than anything. But again, what we want to do is build up our wall and keep everybody away from us. That's why if you perform a random act of kindness, you're connecting somewhere. So you got to get support groups. You got to get around maybe professionals. Yes or no on meds. Face your pain. Oh, happy day. It's so much fun. Connect with others. And, we always say this with humor, but the 3 important rules we have is, number 1, get healthy people in your life. If that doesn't work, rule number 2, get healthy people in your life. And if those first 2 rules don't work, try rule number 3, get healthy people in your life. Now, again, healthy people does not mean that they are all PhD clinical psychologists who have had their entire lives fixed and all sanitized and they're just doing great. What it means, it's people who are doing good enough that they can love you and they can give you feedback when you're being dumb and you can hear it just as you can do for them. Basically what it is, they want what's best for you. So if we can understand Anadonia, we can understand this unrealistic view of life and see it now as some of the time it is colorful and exciting. Some of the time it's not. Sometimes it's tough. That's what normal life is. So if we can better understand and more readily see our confining walls when we are with other people sharing similar stuff, we might get better. In the safe confines of fellowship meetings, we truly can begin to dismantle our walls so we can get better and we can connect. And you never know. Maybe we can recover with our family. Maybe we can recover with our friends. Maybe we can actually even recover with society as a whole. And maybe we'll understand a God of love, not a vengeful God. So I thank you for joining today. Always great to be here. We meet on Wednesdays and Fridays at 6:30 here at Walnut Grove Baptist Church at 7046 Cold Harbor Road, Mechanicsville. If you ever want to call, if you don't live around here or can't make it here, you can always call. You can call me at 804-746-5081, or you can email me at csimpson@wgva.church. So I hope to hear from you. I'm so glad you joined us. We do have a pretty cool community of people online, and always glad to know you're out there. You can also suggest topics to me if you'd like as well. But the fact is we don't have to live our lives with destructive, ongoing addiction and addictive behaviors. We can do otherwise. So let's close with a prayer of serenity. I always say, if we would just do this prayer, life would be pretty good. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as a pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that Jesus will make all things right if I surrender to his will. That I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever and the next. Amen. Again, thanks for joining us, and hope to hear from you soon.